Emmerdale's Jai Sharma discovers the outrageous truth about Kerry Wyatt's wedding next week, and wastes no time before leaning in for a kiss. Does Kerry feel the same way about Jai, or is he getting carried away with himself? Kerry has just shocked the villagers by tying the knot with unlikely partner Eric Pollard, much to the dismay of Jai after his own recent romantic connection with Kerry. Viewers know that Kerry's nuptials were a financial scam, as she wanted to help Eric protect his assets and provide as much as possible for his grandson Jacob Gallagher. Next week, Kerry ponders an unexpected consequence of her wedding. She's noticed that Jai is visibly upset over her decision, even though they'd already reached an agreement not to take their recent fling any further. Deciding to put Jai in the picture, Kerry brazenly admits to him that her wedding to Eric was purely a financial arrangement. Jai couldn't be happier as Kerry explains her motives in detail, clarifying that Eric wants to bend the rules so that Jacob's inheritance isn't eroded by tax payouts. The smug businessman assumes that Kerry is telling him everything because she has feelings for him, so he leans in for a kiss. But will things really go as Jai hopes? I don't think Kerry realized how much Jai did care about her, Laura Norton, who plays her, recently explained. She knew she just didn't have the time and space for that relationship at that moment. Then all of this stuff came up with Eric, and she just felt like it definitely wasn't the right thing. But then she starts to see how much Jai is wounded by the fact that she's now with Eric. Jai's a bit jealous and she's just like, why? And then she confesses everything to him. She added, Kerry had no time, she'd said. Jai had his own complications, a son he was trying to reconnect with, and a past that sometimes sat in his mouth like grit. They'd parted with a truce, not a promise, stepping back into their old roles. The boss and the underling. The bickering colleagues who could slide from sarcasm to solidarity like a short circuit. But now everything else had changed. There was a new geometry to Kerry's life that Jai could not make sense of. Someone had placed a wedge between them, and he could not tell whether it was permission or protection. Kerry found him in the quieter corner of the depot, hands curled around a mug, barefoot in a pair of scuffed trainers, a look that balanced shame and stubbornness. She'd had a long night. The wedding had been clumsy and brave and timed, like patching a leaky roof in a storm. She'd spent it trying to think of Jacob, of giving him a sliver of security in a world that sometimes ate children's futures before they'd properly started. She looked different, not cleaned up for a love story but rearranged for a purpose. Jai, she said, as if the name were a prayer and a dare. He answered with silence first. Silence was safer. Then came the question that had been a pebble under his tongue for days. Why did you do it, Kerry? She took a breath that smelled faintly of coffee and exhaustion. Because I couldn't watch Jacob's bits get slimmed away. Eric can bend things in ways I can't. It's not. She stopped, laughed at herself because the rest of it felt like a lecture. It's not love. It's a legal band-aid. The admission landed between them like a stone in a pond. Jai watched the ripples. For a moment he saw not just the woman in front of him but the child she fought for. The feral loyalty that made her crumple to the ground to pick up someone else's happiness. She wasn't trying to hurt him. She was trying to fix something that had swollen with grief and worry. So you married a man who's nearly retired to keep a lad's inheritance intact? Jai said. The words came out too sharp. Kerry's eyes didn't flinch. Yes. Did you tell him it was, He stabbed with the old, clumsy honesty he rarely used on favorites and didn't expect to have to use on Kerry Wyatt. That it was never real, that you were doing this for Jacob? She shrugged, a small and weary motion. He knows enough to play along. He's not stupid. He likes the arrangement. It suits him. He gets company. I get the chance to stop Jacob's future from being eaten. It's not pretty, Jai. It's not romantic. It's dirty and panicked and human. Jai felt something inside, something small and vital, flutter, and then fold. For weeks he'd felt something soft taking shape around his ribs. Now it recognized the shape of being unwanted. He'd loved the idea of being wanted by someone who mocked him for his sensible shoes and his careful schedules. Kerry had laughed at his grief and patched it, given him permission to be human again. He'd allowed himself hope after the bareness of months. You could have told me, he said, and the accusation was the only weapon he had left. Kerry reached out as if the distance between them could be measured and mended with touch. Her hand found his, calloused and warm, and for a moment the depot was far away. The hum of the heater, the smell of oil, the distant shout of someone struggling with a pallet. The rest of the world fell into the margins. Jai, I didn't want to hurt you, she said. I thought it would be cleaner, less messy, if I just did it and we moved on. I didn't want to drag you into the mess with me." He could see in her face the honest fear of someone who always expected doors to swing shut on her and rarely believed that someone would stay. It was a look that made Jai's jaw ache. "You did drag me in," he replied softly. "You dragged me in by not telling me. By marrying someone else when we had something." The sentence dissolved into a bitter laugh. "It wasn't even a future, Kerry. It was me thinking it might be." She looked at him then, really looked at him. The way she had when she thought he was a fool in a suit, and yet, somewhere under the facade, she noticed the man anyway. There was a vulnerability there that the old Kerry would have skirted around like a pothole. Instead, she paused. "Do you think I didn't notice you being wound up? Jai, you've been shut off lately. You have that look when things gnaw at you." The confession was naked. Jai swallowed. There's a peculiar cruelty in being the one who sees the other's pain and does nothing. He had been trying to be stoic. He'd wrapped himself in the sensible armor of being a provider, a fixer. But seeing Kerry's eyes, which had a way of seeing through to the honesty in him, made everything else seem flimsy. "I do care about you," he said finally. The words were not a proclamation. They were a fact, plain and small, the kind of truth you say in the half-light when you don't expect fireworks, only the simple rearrangement of furniture. "I didn't mean for it to be like this." Kerry's mouth worked like she was forming an apology and finding it too big. "Jai, I don't know where I stand. I made a decision for Jacob. That doesn't mean I don't feel things. It doesn't mean I don't like being with you. It's just," she broke off and pressed her hand to her chest, to where her heart might be, or maybe just to show she meant what she said. "I can't promise anything." He reached for her in a movement that had urgency and the slow deliberation of someone who's been learning to be brave in small steps. Jai leaned forward, and the depot seemed to pull its breath in with him. The kiss, when it came, was not cinematic. It was imperfect, brief, awkward, and honest. His mouth brushed hers, and for a second the years of bickering, of shared jokes about overtime and tea breaks, of slammed doors and conciliatory pies, all folded into that single, absurd gesture. Kerry didn't pull away at first. She let the contact happen like a fragile truce, like two people agreeing that for one small second they might try to be brave together. Her hand went to the back of his neck, tentative but real. The world narrowed to the smallness of a depot locker, and the vastness of a future that might yet be rewritten. Then, almost as quickly as it had started, doubt arrived, sharp and insistent. "Jai," she whispered when they broke apart, breathless but not entirely sure what breath meant anymore. I can't do this to Eric. I can't go around breaking promises I hardly understand." "Jacob, you're not breaking anything to Eric that he asked you not to," Jai said. There was a protective tilt to his voice, the kind of voice he used when talking to his son about being honest at school. "You told me it was an arrangement. But, if you want this, Kerry, if you want something with me, tell me. Don't do whatever you think you should. Do what you want." Kerry's eyes filled with that messy, mortal softness. It was one thing to be practical. It was another to realize that being practical could hurt the person you wanted near you. She laughed, short and watery, because the decision felt heavier now, draped in not just logic but in tenderness. "I'm scared," she said. "I'm scared of messing up Jacob's future, scared of being foolish with my heart, scared of leaving him vulnerable. I'm also scared of being happy. Aren't we all a mess?" "It's what makes you human," Jai replied. "And it's what makes you you. I don't want you to be anyone else." They stood there, the depot light buzzing, both trying to read the other's face for signs of certainty. The kiss had happened, the pivot moment that promised anything could change, and now reality's edges sharpened. There were steps to be taken. Legalities and gossip and Eric's calculating, watchful presence. There was Jacob's future, the slippery thing both of them wanted to guard from prying, clumsy hands. "We'll see," Kerry said finally. It wasn't a promise. It was more like an opening, and Jai accepted it because sometimes openings were all one could get. News of the kiss was not slow to travel. In a village as close-knit and nosy as Emmerdale, secrets lasted approximately as long as the milk in Moira's fridge. By the time Eric Pollard walked into the Woolpack that evening, the pub had already spun the thread of rumor into a tapestry of half-truths and color. He sat down at his usual stool, face composed, hands folded like bank notes. He'd been a man of deals his entire life, marriage included, and he viewed emotions as numbers that could be played to his advantage, counted and arranged. "You look like someone's told you the wrong end of a secret," he said to Kerry lightly, a practiced lilt in his tone. Kerry met his gaze, and for a sliver of time, something like purpose hardened her features. "Eric, I need to be honest with you. I did it for Jacob. I married you because it was the best way to protect him. The pub stilled. Jai, who had followed and stood near the door, felt the air thicken. Eric's eyebrows rose, the only motion on a face made up of many years of practiced surprise. Instead of anger or hurt, Eric smiled in the way a man smiles when a deal turns out as he expected. If that's what you wanted, Kerry, then all's well, he said smoothly. I didn't expect a fairy tale. I expected convenience. I expected someone to keep me lively in my later years, and you, my dear, have been lively. That doesn't mean I don't notice the looks Jai gives you, though. Jai's shoulders tightened. The remark landed like a pebble, and he could see the circles it made, small but noticeable. Eric continued with a small, almost mischievous twist to his mouth. I'll be frank. As long as Jacob's future is secured and you're content, I'll play the gentleman husband. You do what you must, Kerry. Me? I like a quiet life with the occasional bit of chaos. Kerry exhaled, the conversation more complicated than she'd imagined. She hadn't expected acquiescence. She'd expected negotiation at best, perhaps some indignation. Eric's acceptance opened a fissure of guilt and relief in equal measure. It made everything both easier and more treacherous. Jai watched as Eric left the pub later that night, his silhouette shrinking into the drizzle. The village held its breath. There were lines to be crossed, rules to be bent, and people to be appeased. But Jai had kissed Kerry, and Kerry had not recoiled. That knowledge lodged somewhere deep and stubborn and refused to be dislodged by logic. Over the next days, the village became a stage for small but shattering moments. Jacob, oblivious in parts and wise beyond his years in others, asked his mother questions about the ring on her finger. Kerry answered with tremulous honesty, choosing phrases with the care of someone threading a needle. It's a way to make sure you're safe, she told him. Jacob, with grim little understanding, nodded like someone who had seen too much to be surprised. Moira ran a headline in the pub that made the gossip circuit wink and sparkle. The factory hummed with innuendo. Even the sheep seemed to look sideways at Kerry's jaunty stride. People chose sides, some believing in Kerry the savior of a boy's future, others whispering of selfishness or folly. But soap, like life, refused to be neat. There was no tidy ending. Kerry and Jai were careful. Each meeting was a test of wills and boundaries, small adjustments and stolen glances. They navigated like teenagers at a dance, awkward, earnest, and thrilled by the very fact of being noticed. There were moments of tenderness. Jai fixing a shelf in Kerry's living room, Kerry bringing a pie to his son's school sports day. There were moments that frayed. Nights when Kerry lay awake thinking of legal consequences. Nights when Jai's patience thinned, and he played the part of the disappointed man. If anything, the scandal welded them together into something quietly defiant. They were two people who had always preferred practicality to poetry, yet here they were, stumbling into both. In the end, there was no neat resolution in the first week. The kiss was not a conclusion. It was an ignition, one that might kindle a steady warmth or burst into flames. Eric watched, amused and calculating. Jacob slept more easily. The village continued to gossip. And Kerry, wild, brave, ridiculous, and wholly human, kept on trying to solve problems the only way she knew how. With laughter, fuss, and a stubborn heart. When Laura Norton's anecdotal words echoed in the back of Jai's mind, about how Kerry had brought out a nice side of him, he allowed himself a rueful smile. Perhaps it was true. Perhaps people could change. Perhaps they could surprise even themselves. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Emmerdale Echoes.